Thanks for being with us. The call-in number here is 202-808-9925. How did we get into this mess? If we agree, if journalists like David and I would agree that there is a deep and broad assault on democracy, how come? Always there? Just a little more obvious now? Maybe it's just overstated? If it's not overstated, what's undergirding it? What's caused it? What are we going to do about it? The call-in number is 202-808-9925. We'll also be talking in the third hour. It is a one-year anniversary today, the one-year anniversary today of the Parkland murders. I did not say shooting, I said murders. In the second hour, we'll be talking about the Green New Deal. Another thing, I'm going to be on tomorrow also, and if anybody who's listening has a cool thing, yesterday we heard from the mutualists, they called themselves, in Madison, Wisconsin, about cool stuff they are doing to try to rethink some of their economic transactions and community interactions in Madison. Would welcome people's calls about cool stuff happening around town, cool stuff happening around your state, cool stuff happening around the country. Where are there, in fact, ripples of hope that can be used as model policy happening in the nonprofit sector, in the co-op sector, in the policy sector? Would love people to share those as well. We've got on the line right now Victoria from KPFK, Upland, California. Hello, Victoria.
Hi. Thanks for taking my call. I'll be short, and I just wanted to give you my thoughts about why we're in this hole. And I honestly do believe, if you just stay with me for a minute or a minute and a half, I believe it's because industry and media have done such a great job in promoting individualism and consumerism, and no one's really promoting the common goods of the people for the people. And so we all, who's been affected up until now has been the usually suppressed minority groups. And when they were voicing their grievances, we were also happy to kind of look away when they were being suppressed by police brutality or other forces of our government, because it didn't affect us. But now that the socioeconomic standards of the white males have changed and they've kind of joined the ranks of the normally suppressed people, we didn't even realize we were losing our democratic rights because at the time we didn't need to voice our opinions or voice our grievances. It wasn't affecting us. Now that it is affecting the white man, and they're finding out that, wait a minute, I'm not allowed to speak up, and because I'm going to be, for some reason, suppressed by my local authorities. Now, hence, we have these fringe groups, and I think it's a problem that we have fringe groups, not because we have them, we've always had them, but because now they've kind of captured the American political system, because the fringe groups have become more sophisticated, where they've changed their beer bellies and undershirts for suits and ties. They've discovered the value of education, and they've kind of infiltrated all kinds of branches of the government and other society, pillars of society. Our law firms are filled with them. Our police stations are filled with them. And honestly, it's only happening because we just, for some reason, as white society, can't fathom the fact that the system is broken. And so instead of looking and seeing what's wrong with the system and the condition we're in, we're kind of scapegoating minorities, blacks, Mexicans, Asians, I don't know, whatever, LGBT community. It's because it's so much easier to wrap your head around the other for the condition you're in rather than the actual system that's created the condition, because that system has worked for mostly the white male for so long. It's just a hard pill to swallow.
And Victoria, if you were, and maybe this puts you on the spot too much, but if you were going to do something about it, what would be your favorite thing? And maybe, vote or what, but you go ahead.
Well, I honestly think we need to, first of all, take money out of politics and make it a playing field for everyone. And I honestly think since the airwaves belong to the people, they're supposed to belong to the people, I honestly believe every station on the television, every station on the radio must, without any choice, give public radio and hours. I mean, they need to give 2 hours, 4 hours, whatever hours we decide as a collective of people to broadcast people's voices. And so we can all go back to promoting our common needs, common goods. We kind of need to wrap our needs around, because we all kind of have the same needs, but nobody knows it. We all feel alone because, if you're Black, you think your needs are very different than if you're American Indian. But once we start talking to one another and realizing we all have the basic needs as human beings, whether you're American or not, whether you're an immigrant or not, we kind of will, I think, start showing the bonds of humanity. And we just need to come back to really just community self-serving. But we don't have the space to do it. You can't even go to a city hall and ask for space because it's $400 an hour. I mean, even though we own, on paper, our common goods, we're supposed to own the airwaves. We have I think KPFK is one of the only, I'm in Los Angeles, one of the only public radio stations that I can call and talk to and voice my opinion and hear other people do the same. NPR doesn't do it. It's supposed to be, public broadcasting. We just don't have the airwaves, and they're supposed to be ours. I mean, why are we? It's why
we do this, Victoria. And thank you so much for calling in, and heard you say that heard you say a bunch of stuff in there, including that there's been a lot of focus, a lot of glorification of individualism, less glorification, less discussion, less highlighting of how we're stronger together than we are apart. And also the transformation where you said sort of the beer belly white man is now, there are many more of them in a similar economic circumstance to people of color, and we haven't yet come to grips with, or some people haven't yet come to grips with, what all that's going to mean culturally. And you also want to focus on the system. There was else in there as well. Want to get to Rob listening on TuneIn. Rob from Mesa, go ahead.
Yes. Hey, I've got just a little bit of a disagreement with you said, is there a disparity between wealth and income? Yeah. And I'd like to expand that to say, no, there's a disparity between tax and fines and income. Okay. And the reason why I say that is because, I look at it this way. All income is income. So why don't we, tax it all the same? Why is a business different than a dividend, different than a whatever? It should be all taxed the same. And the other thing is about the disparity. I'm going to point this out. Trump, who made bad decisions, lost billions of dollars, he gets to write that billions of dollars off against all his future income for decades. So his kids probably won't even have to pay taxes on any of the business adventures because of the tax loophole that allows him to write off his loss. Now, opposed to like in 2008, if you bought a house, 5-10 years before the crash, you paid into your house tens of thousands of dollars. Now, the people who created that, fiasco on the market dip, the banks get the house back. You don't get to write off that $20,000 you put into that house against your future income. So there's a disparity right there. Now, when I talk about fines, it's real easy. When you get a speeding ticket, that's the most regressive ticket there is.
Yeah, $80 or $250 for everybody, no matter how much that impacts you. I get that, but here's my minor quibble, and that is that even if there was equalization, by equalization I don't mean regressivization, right? Even if we address taxes and fines, so that different transfers, so the transfer of real estate or the transfer of hedge fund profits were taxed at a similar rate, or heck, the transfer of inheritance was taxed at a similar rate. One could make an argument those things could be taxed at higher rates, but let's say let's tax at least a similar rate as regular income. That would address what you're talking about, and also fines if there is tolls over bridges were done based on ability to pay and not just $3 for everybody. That would do something. Or if the traffic fines were based on ability to pay, not only flat for everybody, done in regressive nature, that would address that issue. It still wouldn't do everything about ownership. That if we fine at sin, and if we tax at transfer, if you benevolently or neutrally hold property and just let it appreciate and do not transfer, then there's not opportunity either to fine or tax. And I'm not saying that the most important thing is to fine or tax, but if we're concerned about equality, merely taxing or fining, I think, is not the only things we should be thinking about. We also have to think about systems of ownership. Systems of ownership by community, systems of ownership of across generations, and how we want to think about that in your fourth generation. But on the chance you wanted to finish your thought, Rob, go ahead if you want to either push back on me or finish up.
Well, just the last thing on the inheritance tax. The people who don't understand, they say, well, you already taxed on that. Why give it? Why tax it again? And all I have to say to that is, like, if someone came up to you that you didn't know and gave you a corporation, you would pay taxes on that as a gift. So it's the same thing for inheritance. So for those who say, it's double taxation, it's not, because those kids did not earn that. They were just born into it, so it doesn't count the same.
You may have triggered my rant on the inheritance tax, which I will give after the break. But Rob, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
We're going to go to break in just a second. Here are a few reasons that I want to tease about why I think we have seen a rise. And yes, it relates to wealth inequality. That'd be one of them. I think that Victoria made a really important point that some of this is about racial dynamics and racist dynamics in itself, and how that, and as our country diversifies, how do we come to grips with that? And a system that seemed to benefit a greater number, now benefiting fewer, that's also a big part of it. I think Victoria also made the point of the rise of a particular kind of media.